And we're live. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the Solvable Mysteries podcast. My name is Yuras. As every week, I'm joined by my co-host Glenn. Hi, Kove. Dude, how are you feeling on this Friday evening for you? And are you excited to discuss this case?
Yeah, definitely. This is I'm starting to get flashbacks to the Brian Schaefer episode and some others. But yeah, this is a really weird one. And did this one come from I think this one came from a listener suggestion, right?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, we picked this one right from the list that we have where we keep the suggestions. Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah, I think this might have been one of our Irish YouTube viewers specifically, right from the comments, because yeah, it was right near the top. So definitely love to get those suggestions from people that follow the show.
Yeah, definitely. By the way, just a quick mention: we have, I think, unproportionately a lot of Irish listeners, at least on the podcast apps. So, really want to say a big shout out to the Irish that are listening to our podcast, because I've always peeped like the statistics just a little bit, and I was like, whoa! For some reason, and especially in Dublin, it says that Dublin is actually the third most, like the highest city in terms of how many podcast downloads we get on the apps. So definitely really cool. I always liked Ireland and Dublin, especially like the city. I kind of thought it was a really interesting city. Definitely different from anything else, I would say. But now, this week, we're going to be talking about the Trevor Deely case, which is a disappearance of a man. And pretty much it's happening right, uh, I would say, in the heart of Dublin. So, without any further ado, I think we should definitely, I guess, give a little presentation on the case. Then we should jump right into the timeline, have a few questions, and then finally, let's, really go through the theories and, think what is the most logical explanation for why this man disappeared. This is going to be a fun show for you guys, especially for the people who are going to be peeping the YouTube channel as well. We have a very interesting CCTV footage. Well, basically, two different footages. Very creepy, very odd. I think we're going to be going through them a lot. We're going to be discussing various points on the CCTV footage. I'm just checking if everything is in working order, and it seems that we're rolling perfectly. So, really quickly, want to give the a quick presentation of what we're going to be talking about. Then I'll throw it back to you, and then I think we should definitely hit the timeline. So on 8th of December 2000, so this is happening 21 years ago, Irishman Trevor Deely disappeared in Dublin. He had been walking home around 4 a.m. from his office's Christmas party and had needed to go to the bank where he worked to get an umbrella because the night was very rainy. Also, he needed to get certain things in order for his shift the next day because he was supposed to go back to work literally in the same morning. He was seen on a security camera at his bank, and in front of another bank he passed as he headed home on foot. He was going home on foot because there was a taxi strike going on in Dublin on that particular evening. So there were no taxis to be had because on a regular basis he would usually take a taxi, but this time he had to walk. Now, both CCTV footages also captured another man in dark clothing who is yet to be identified and is actually considered very likely to have played a role in Deely's disappearance. So this is like the general quick gist of it. I have the timeline. I want to go through it, dude. Before we, engage in talking about the timeline, you want to mention anything about this case? Did you find it like maybe different from our other cases or something like that, or just in general, anything you want to add?
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, if I had to describe this case, it's almost like an Irish. Brian Schaefer, but with a twist of, like you said, there's some kind of sinister motive, and if Brian Schaefer had suddenly taken a big trip right before he disappeared.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
If
I
that
know.
makes sense. Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. All right, so let's quickly jump to the timeline. I have, by the way, the timeline when I was researching, it was kind of difficult to get all of the points in a correct manner. I did so at the end of the day, but it was so because none of the sources that I've seen have like the timeline in a nice orderly manner. So if you're going to be looking up this case online, you're probably going to find different articles on it with like different timelines, and they all will have really interesting and I think crucial points, but none of the articles or sources that at least I've found will have the whole story laid out perfectly. So it's kind of, on that end, I was kind of disappointed in terms of the people of writing these, because I think they may have inadvertently hindered the investigation, I guess, because like people trying to research it, they might want to know the full story, which I think I have literally all of the best points here, and I really am excited to go through them. So let's begin with the very beginning when Trevor Deely was born. He was born on the 15th of August in 1978. So once again, I want to remind everyone, back in 2000 when he disappeared, he was a 22-year-old man. So basically he was born in Naas. So I'm already on the Google Maps. Naas is, I guess, a little township, kind of in close proximity to Dublin, but he wasn't a Dublin native. He grew up in a small town in Naas. He had, I believe, multiple siblings, if I'm not mistaken. He was the youngest of four siblings. His parents, I mean, Michael, I'm sorry, and Anne Deely, they had four kids. I'm sorry, four kids, and Trevor was like the youngest one. So as I've said, he grew up in Naas, the little township right here that you can see on the map. After finishing school, Trevor Deely studied business at the Waterford Institute of Technology, but he actually dropped out in his second year. And then he subsequently completed a computer course in Dublin when his sister actually suggested to him that he should try taking up a computer course, which okay, I want to quickly throw it back to you, man. From all I've gathered about this case, I kind of like the sense that I have is that Trevor Deely actually was a like obviously he couldn't have been like a complete super expert at computers because he was still kind of young, but like he was really gifted in that sense. At least that's what I've gathered. How about you?
Yeah, it was almost like he found his calling because he had tried to study like business, and I forget what the other one was. That he had tried a couple of courses of study and things besides that, and then all of a sudden he gets into, I guess, computer science basically, and was like, oh, just where's this been all my whole life, and then was was wildly successful at it to the point that he got multiple job offers.
Yeah, and one of the job offers came from a Bank of Ireland. And I think he actually asked his father, Michael, which of the three offers that he received after finishing the computer course he should take. And I think his father said something along the lines, you should take the bank because the bank is like the safer option when compared to the other two, which I kind of agree. Like working at a bank at such a young age in the IT department, that's a really good career move, I think, for Trevor at that point. So he started working in the IT department of Bank of Ireland in 1999. So at the point when he disappears, I think he has been already working at this bank in the IT department for over 1 year. He wasn't completely a new guy in the office. He already knew his way around, and I think the quotes that I've read is that everyone at that department was really happy with how enthusiastic and really highly motivated Trevor was at his work. So only good things are, being thrown out there regarding his work career. But now we're going to be jumping to the more crucial, more interesting points. And the first point is that just a few weeks before he vanishes, right, without any trace, this is why we're talking about him today. So just few weeks before that, Trevor Deely flies to Alaska to meet up with a girl that he had met over the summer. This girl was actually vacationing in Dublin. I think he met her through some personal friends back in Naas, that little town that he originated from. And he met this girl, but this girl had to fly back to Anchorage, Alaska, as the summer was ending, I would assume. And now, just weeks before he disappears, and now he disappears on the first part of December. So this is what, like late November, around late November of 2000, he flies to Alaska to meet up with a girl. Now, I really want to ask your take on the whole thing. Before I do that, I want to quickly mention that the ticket was apparently free because one of his close friends from back in the day, named Glenn Cullen, was working as a flight attendant. And part of that gig is you pretty much get discounted or almost free flights. So that's how he got the flight to Alaska. He didn't really have to pay a lot of money for it. I think he flew to LAX, and from LAX, from the Los Angeles airport, he then took another flight to Alaska. So he, I don't know, like the complete logistics of that event, but from what I've gathered, everything was kind of almost free because he almost had that ticket back from LAX to Dublin also. So yeah, dude, your whole take on this Alaska adventure, and do you think it has some sort of a underlying connection to his disappearance overall?
That whole thing was really weird to me. I'm trying to think how much I want to hold off for later in this show versus my initial thoughts. Here's an initial thought. When I was trying to research, I was like, how long does that flight take? And when I was researching it, like the Google search for that was saying something like 19 hours or something crazy like that. But then on a couple of the shows I listened to, they said, oh, it's like a 9 hour trip each way. Did you run
Hmm.
into anything like that as far as, because I was trying to figure out, like, yeah, how do you get from Ireland to Alaska? Like, can you cut across Canada? Is it, you know what I mean? Because they're both very far north. Like, I was hoping, but you just answered the question that, like, you went to LAX first.
Yeah.
So that doesn't sound like a very fast trip, right? Because Los Angeles is pretty far south compared to Alaska or Ireland. So, yeah, that was weird. The other thing I just thought of, I didn't even think of this earlier, was I guess you can get a travel visa pretty quickly from Ireland to the US.
Yeah, I think
I don't know.
I think
Yeah.
so. For us, it's like I think we can spend easily, like really easily, 90 days. Yeah, yeah. For us, it's like super easy. I know a lot of people who just fly to America because
Okay.
for 3 months out of the year, America pretty much has no issues with us, at least. And I would assume the other European Union states to be, vacationing. It's like it's a travel visa, I would assume. Now, to add to this trip, I have a quote. I have a quote I want to read from Glenn Cullen, the man who provided the tickets to Trevor Deely. His quote regarding the whole trip is, quote, he traveled from Dublin to LAX, Los Angeles, and then, as far as I'm aware, he got a connecting flight straight on up to Anchorage. He went by himself to see this girl up in Anchorage that he had met in Dublin that summer. I've never met her. She wasn't here for long. End quote. So this is the quote of Glenn Cullen, the man who provided the free ticket to LAX, which is, I don't know. I mean, it's a cool trip to take. I'm not gonna belabor this point too much because I feel like I would take a trip to Alaska anytime. It's like so different, so cool. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's funny that for some reason I never thought about the trip though. My father was in the Air Force back in the late '60s, early '70s. He was stationed up in Alaska, and I think probably had some of the best times of his life. He really liked it.
Mm.
Sometimes I think maybe he regretted not staying up there. But I'm looking at it, and honestly, it's like it's not even that expensive from here. You know, obviously LAX is my major airport here. It's like $240 or something, nonstop from here to Anchorage. This is not bad. I don't know if that's round trip or not, or one way.
Hmm.
I think it's round trip. So wow, now I'm kind of like, oh, maybe I should go up there
Yeah,
sometime. Yeah,
you should.
by the way, there's so I don't know. This is, you know what it is. I'll hold off a little bit because I have some interesting commentary on even this whole weird thing about him maybe going to go visit this girl or not.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
but I'll hold off a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I'll stick.
dude, definitely, because we will be coming back to this. Now, I want to continue on into the timeline. After the trip, as he returned back, Trevor was looking forward to spending Christmas at his hometown of Nace with his parents and three siblings. Okay, so as he returned, he was looking actually to spend the Christmas with his family. Now, the next time point in the timeline is Trevor's parents believe that the last time they saw Trevor was in the family home the day he arrived home from Alaska. They believe it was Tuesday, December 5th, 2 days before he vanished. Because let's remember, the night that led to the vanishing of Trevor Deely, that night was on the 7th of December. Now he disappeared. He's last seen on the 8th, the early mornings of the 8th of December, but like the night that began, that led to his disappearance, that's on the 7th. Now his parents believe that they saw him on the 5th, the last time. So Trevor, after arriving at 5th of December, he goes back to Nace. He takes a bus because I don't think he had a vehicle, if I'm not mistaken. So he actually flies back to Dublin from LAX. He then goes to a bus and then heads straight to Nace to visit his family. Trevor told his parents that he wasn't going to come down the next weekend back to Nace, which was the weekend when he disappeared, by the way. But Trevor probably have changed his plans about not coming home to Nace that weekend because according to his friends Glenn Cullen and then Conleaf, another man. I want to quickly mention his last name. So by the way, his name is kind of significantly, I would say, Irish or Celtic, so I want to make sure I pronounced it correctly. Conleith Lunan, because in terms of Trevor's friends, we only have two main individuals here, which would be Glenn Cullen, the man that I've briefly spoken about, and then Conleith Lunan, who was basically a CCTV expert, not necessarily an expert, but he was working at that time for a company that provided CCTV equipment to local businesses, and Conleith Lunan is actually the sole purpose, like he's seriously one of the best friends a person could have, because as Trevor disappeared, he was the man who went and grabbed the CCTV. Because as you've mentioned on our previous shows, Glenn, you kind of said that back in the day the CCTV was recording on a VHS, and on VHS the local businesses, they usually like delete the footage. Usually the practice was 24 hours afterwards the footage is deleted. So Conleith Lunan, knowing this information regarding how CCTV was working back in the early 2000s, he actually went out there and he knew that he was like the time was of the essence and he needed to grab the CCTV, and that's why we have the CCTV, which is like really very important. So what a great friend Conleith Lunan is. Now going back to the timeline, I know that last timestamp was kind of choppy, so I want to quickly reiterate it a little bit, and then I will ask your opinion regarding, man. So I want to quickly dissect what I've just said earlier because this is a very important point in my opinion. So let's go back. Trevor tells his parents that as he had returned from that Alaska trip, he takes a bus, he goes back to Nays, he tells his parents that he's not gonna come over for this weekend because this was a Tuesday. Okay, and I think there was some sort of a pre-arranged thing where Trevor was supposed to like go back to Nace for that weekend, but he tells his parents that I cannot go back because uh like I don't know why. I don't think he told them the exact reason why he couldn't go back for that weekend. Maybe there was some sort of a work situation happening or something like that. But now this is the crucial point. He did, in fact, tell his best friends, Glenn Cullen and Khan Leith Lunan, who, by the way, were from Nace, that he was in fact going to meet them for drinks at the local pub during that weekend. So, just really quickly, I want to ask for you, dude, what do you make of the whole situation where he tells his parents, I'm not gonna be in Nace over the weekend, but then he tells his best friends that I will be in Nace over the weekend and we can go and grab a drink at a pub. Like, what do you make of that whole ordeal?
If I were to read into it, especially remembering like when I was right around his age, no joke, me and my wife actually skipped a Thanksgiving um, with my family to like just go do a little vacation on our own. And I feel like maybe it was like almost literally the same exact age. So to me, it almost feels like it's somebody who's just left the nest, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know what, I've gotten a lot of family, the whole front end of my life, and I still want to see my friends, but I don't really feel like doing the whole family thing. And then, depending on what we think happened in Alaska, maybe he doesn't really want to talk about it too much either.
Mm.
Get a lot of nosy questions from mom and everyone else. So that's my initial thought.
All right. Um, okay, so regarding what happened next, let's actually move to the day when he disappeared. Because literally, now let's move 2 days into it. And this is where the creepiness and the really strange things will start happening. Now, so this is happening on December 7th, as I've said, the night that led to his disappearance. It was a Thursday. So as the Thursday was finishing up, um, there was a Christmas party. Initially, I kind of find it strange for a Christmas party, a company Christmas party, to be happening on a Thursday of all places. Well, it was like not a party in a sense of let's get drunk, let's just have a good time. It's more of a formal party where it was like I think a band was playing at like a local Hilton hotel and they had like a steak dinner or something along those lines, like a big dinner. It's kind of formal, high kind of very high etiquette because I feel like the average age of people working at the Bank of Ireland, they probably like the median age range was probably higher than 22. I would assume. Trevor was kind of one of the younger individuals working at that company. So basically, he had to go back to work on the Friday. So this is happening on a Thursday, but he had to work on the following Friday, which he misses entirely. And I know you want to add something to that because I've seen it in the notes. You find that kind of funny, but like I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that really soon. But I want to quickly let's quickly go through the December 7th, and then let's talk about what happened on the December 8th. So December 7th, Trevor initially goes to I guess with some colleagues to have some drinks, and we don't have the exact timestamp when, but he goes to a place called Cooper Face Jack's, which is for everyone who's watching this on the YouTube channel. This is Cooper Face Jack's bar right here. We don't have the exact timestamp, to my understanding, when he does this. So he after work he grabs a few beers and then he goes down this little street to the Hilton Hotel, the Hilton Dublin Hotel. This is where that Christmas company Christmas party was happening. So I have the Trevor partied with Bank of Ireland colleagues at the Hilton Hotel near Charlemont Palace, Charlemont Place. I'm sorry. And this is the first interesting part. Trevor calls Glenn Cullen, who couldn't hear him because of the office party at the Hilton. And this is Glenn's quote, I said, Trev, I'll call you back, end quote. It was late. Glenn believes that this happened between 11 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. His other quote, then he called me back. I missed the call, end quote. One way or another, between the background noise and missing each other's calls, Glenn and Trevor never had a conversation that night. Now, Trevor will call him one more time. We're gonna be talking about it, but initially, just regarding that, dude, your opinions regarding everything that's happening. He goes to a Christmas party, he parties, he's trying to call Glenn a few times. Glenn doesn't pick up because he can't really hear what Trevor is trying to tell him because the office party is kind of really loud. You know what I mean? What do you make of all of this?
Yeah, that part's a little weird. I feel like I didn't even hear that part as much in the research, which is a little weird because it just seemed like a key
Yeah.
piece of trying to, yeah, plumb is. By the way, do you think that's why we have all these Irish um, fans? Because there's like Glens there, but and also apparently the Glens spell their names wrong there.
All right.
Two N's.
All right.
Or
All right, man.
because
Maybe
because
maybe
because
maybe your name is spelled
maybe
incorrectly.
mine, yeah, a one end Glen is a valley. Yeah, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
yeah, it's odd. I was gonna say the one, I had the same thought, by the way, about, I was like, why, yeah, why do they do holiday parties not like on a Friday or something? And I had a couple thoughts about that real quick. Um, by the way, one time some neighbor did a holiday party on a Thursday, like right before the biggest job interview of my life, and they went, like they started the party at 7:30, so it was going to go late. And my wife actually went over there and screamed at them because it was like, "Come on, like, what are you doing? There's a work day tomorrow." So the one thing I was thinking is, I bet you if you do it on a Friday, you might have less people show up, and then a lot of restaurants don't want to rent out the place for a Friday because that's like a big business day.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Where they're going to get a lot of people doing drinks and stuff. But then a Thursday is probably like a lower attendance day. So maybe that's the reason why, like, it's just easier for a business to get, like the venue. But yeah, it does suck because if you're going to drink or anything, I was kind of laughing that in the comment you talked about. I was like, maybe, maybe in Ireland, if you throw a big party, it's acceptable to like not show up to work the next day because it was just picking on Ireland a little
Probably
bit.
not.
Yeah, which by the way, Ireland, I know I'm Irish American too, so I'm joking. I mean, but like, yeah, if it was I mean, we've had parties here where people have gotten pretty trashed, where it
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I don't think they showed up for work the next day either. Um, yeah. Anyway, it's it's odd. I mean, I don't know. When you go to like holiday parties for work or things like that, do you try to call friends randomly and stuff?
Nope.
No, me neither. I don't. I can't. I mean, the only person I might call would be like my wife or something. And he doesn't have a wife, so pretty
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. Like well, we don't really know the relationship that Trevor Deely had with his best friend Glenn Cullen. Maybe calling was kind of what he did a lot. But if it wasn't, then maybe there's something happening here as the story unfolds, I think our audience members might have some opinions what may have been happening there. Okay, so after the Christmas party, he headed to a popular but since closed Buck Whaley's nightclub. So let's see the Buck Whaley's nightclub. So this is the Buck Whaley's nightclub. It's literally right next to his workplace. His workplace is this area right here. This is where we're gonna be reviewing that CCTV image. It's gonna be really fascinating. But this is Buck Whaley's right here. Buck Whaley's was a very popular, I guess, destination to get like drinks, after midnight. Very popular, and actually, some of his colleagues from the Christmas party also attended as well. And this is excellent. This is excellent because of this, we know the first, like, sort of exact timestamp in the case. So he goes to Buck Whaley's. We don't really know exactly when he arrives, but we do know when he leaves, which is really good for us. So he leaves the Buck Whaley's nightclub at around 3:25 a.m. Now, I wish I knew when he arrived, because maybe we could like derive some important information in this disappearance case, knowing how much time he had spent in this nightclub, because I would assume a nightclub or like a bar or something like that. There's some sort of shady happenings could be taking place. Maybe he ran into some people that later on wanted to get rid of him. Who knows, right? But since we don't know exactly how much time he spent at Buck Whaley's, and the fact that his colleagues were attending as well, and the fact that he didn't seem to be stressed out or in any rush to like leave Buck Whaley's, I don't want to speculate in that sense. It's just an idea that maybe he had ran into someone in this particular establishment who may have wished him harm later on the night. Who knows? But I now want to quickly make sure I'm as detailed as possible in explaining this. So remember when I said that there wasn't any sources that had the whole entire timeline lined out perfectly. Like, I really had to go through all of these sources and like put bits and pieces together in my timeline notes. And this is what I mean. So let's think about the times here. um, Trevor Deely leaves Buck Whaley's at 3:25 a.m. in the morning, and he heads towards his workplace, Bank of Ireland Asset Management. Now he arrives there at 3:34 a.m., so 9 minutes later. But now let's bring it back a little bit earlier. Let's bring it back to a time at 3:05 a.m. So 3:05 a.m. is actually 20 minutes before Trevor even leaves Buck Whaley's. So as Trevor is still having a drink, having a good time at Buck Whaley's, I assume, an unidentified man arrives at Trevor's workplace and is just standing there, literally in a super creepy manner, on at on the middle of a night, on a very rainy night. Just, it seems like he was standing right there in the open. And to make more sense of this, I'm going to be jumping to the CCTV that we have from the night. So this is the CCTV. We're actually going to be reviewing it on the YouTube channel right now. So I want to stop throughout the CCTV, and actually for the rest of the timeline, we're going to be on this CCTV video, and we're going to be talking about certain other time points in the case. I'm going to be throwing back to you a lot because there's a lot of questions I have that I want us to hash out. So as you see, this is the man. This is the man for everyone on the YouTube channel. By the way, just really quickly, dude, do you see the screen? Because I think I forgot to share you the screen, right?
Sorry, I was gonna interrupt you. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you should be able
There we
to
go.
see it, right?
Perfect. Yep.
Excellent. Let me just double check that everything's running properly, because I don't. Yep, everything is running properly. Yep, everything's running properly. Right. So, dude, take a look. Take a look. This is happening at I believe 3:05 a.m. A strange man appears and just stands here at Trevor Deely's workplace. Because this little area is this place is his workplace. We're gonna be jumping to like a more in-depth maybe view of it later on. But firstly, dude, do you find it suspicious that a strange man like unidentified to this day, wearing kind of dark clothing, indescript clothing? Just look what he does. He just arrives and just stands here by the pillar, just waiting. Like, what is this? Like, this is not a natural thing to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's real weird. I mean, was he even like smoking or anything? Because I never heard anything about them getting DNA samples. And as a matter of fact, I think they didn't even discover this part of the evidence until later. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they discovered this exact evidence kind of by the help of Conleith Lunan, like the CCTV guy, who was a
Okay.
friend. So they did discover it kind of off the bat, but they will release some more. They had not released the entire CCTV uh, like footage that they had for like 15 years. We had
Oh wow.
a very important additional timestamp in the CCTV that we will go over that was released like 15 years later. I will mention which part it was. Now, this initial part, I think police had off the bat. So let's just see what happens next. So at this particular point, let me just backtrack a few more moments. At this particular point, he arrives, this undescript man arrives at 3:05 a.m. So let's remember what Trevor Deely is doing at this point. Trevor Deely is a good, let's say, half a kilometer away from this area at Buck Whaley's, still having a drink, okay? And he will only leave 20 minutes later. But now let's see what happens next. 30 minutes after this man arrived, so just to give some context, it's a very windy day, stormy day. The weather is terrible. It's raining. It's cold. Like it's December in Ireland. It's cold. It's like it's not a good time to just be standing around next to a pillar or something like that. So this man literally was standing for 30 minutes next to this pillar during the night. Now, I don't know, this kind of screams to me that this man is on a mission and he's actually not just randomly standing here. But what happens next is 30 minutes later, after standing around Trevor Deely's workplace, he receives a call or he calls something, I don't know. But like 30 minutes, he's seen talking on the phone, and what happens next is going to be very creepy. So let's just play this a little bit longer. He's on the phone. We can see him talking on the phone on the CCTV. And then look what happens next. Right after he hangs up the phone, 20 seconds later after that, Trevor Deely will pass him. So let's see. I will stop. Yeah, you see this man right here on the top. This is Trevor Deely. This right here is Trevor Deely. So we will move forward now. I want to quickly propose some speculation, and I want to hear your opinions on it. So, is there a chance that this undescript man who was just on the call with someone, is there a chance that he had received a phone call from someone informing that, yo, Trevor has just left Buck Whaley's and he's gonna be turning the corner and walking past you shortly? Is there a chance he may have been having a phone conversation with someone who had informed him about Trevor Deely's whereabouts and where he was going? You know, does this make any sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like there was a spotter, and either they were both doing surveillance on him, or the spotter was setting up the so-called man in black to to let him know he was in the place for the next portion of whatever was going to happen.
Yeah, because like, who are you gonna be talking to at 3:30 a.m. on a Thursday? You know what I mean? In December 8th, like it's a regular December day. Whatever. Now, what happens next is right. And I really quickly want to zoom out of this CCTV just for a few seconds and give our audience members a better understanding of the structure of this building. So this is the building right here. Let's quickly take a peek, dude. This is the exact column that the man was standing by. So as you can see, there is no shelter from the rain. The dude was literally 30 minutes waiting in the rain. I would assume Trevor Deely came from around this corner, because let's remember Buck Whaley's is in that direction. And now he's just having a call here. Now Trevor walks past this area, and Trevor walks a little bit further on to get inside of the building, because apparently to get inside of the building, this was the IT department of Bank of Ireland back in the 2000s, right? So he was gonna go to this gate. So this is why on the CCTV it's called the second gate. This would be the first gate, and this would be the second gate. So Trevor would have to go here, call the security, and wait for them to let him in. Now, the interesting part here is that we can clearly see from the footage, right, that as the man in black is standing here, Trevor is the first one to pass him. And now the creepy detail here is that if we're gonna quickly jump back on the CCTV, and this is what I was said, this is the man in black, and we can clearly see that Trevor is the first one to pass him. Now in the second timestamp, uh, quickly let's wait until it. Oh look! By the way, very creepy. And another very creepy detail. Look here, dude. I want your take on this as well. As Oh wait, I wanna make sure I'm accurate here. Wait, where is this? Where's Trevor? Oh, right here. As you can see, Trevor. Look, dude, this is Trevor Deely. He walks past the man in black, and look at the reaction of the man in black. From this little timestamp, I can see that the man in black is not looking in the direction of Trevor Deely. He's not looking at his direction, but look what he's gonna do as Trevor Deely passes. Just keep paying attention to Trevor, to the man in black. Look, Trevor passes him. Look, a few seconds passes by. He appears to remain in the same position. Look, he now turns. He turns and he follows. Did you saw that? He follows Trevor Deely to the second gate, but this is the crazy part. Look at the next CCTV. Okay, so yeah, now this is a good explanation. As I've said, this is gate 1, gate 2. Let's keep looking. This is what I want to ask you. This is another angle from the CCTV footage. Now this is looking from the inside out. So this is on the inside of the premises looking at gate 2. So let's see what happens next. This is the creepy point, is that, let's keep looking. The man in see, look, the man in black, because this is not Trevor Deely, this is the man in black. So what I found pretty strange here is that it looked clearly like Trevor passed the man in black and had like a good maybe 6 to 7 seconds, like he was 6 to 7 seconds ahead of the man in black. But on the second angle, the man in black appears first on the CCTV, which isn't logical in my opinion, because Trevor Deely was supposed to appear first. Did I make any sense, man? Does this make any
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. No, it does, and because yeah, I mean, I almost had to listen to it again too when you explained it, because it was like, what? Well, first of all, I guess my question would be, did Trevor, I don't know, stop to tie his shoe? Did he drop something? Like, given the short amount of space between gate 1 and gate 2, how does the man in black even get that much more ahead of him? Unless, what if Trevor is on edge already, and then he makes up an excuse to stop or turn around, or you know what I mean, like kind of almost to force someone who's following you to either give up the game or keep going.
Yeah, exactly. That's
You
a
know
good
what I
point.
mean? Yeah.
So as we can see, the man in black, as he is the first one to arrive, right? Let's just quickly see. He kind of goes to this corner. So he kind of went a little bit over this corner, and then moments later, let's see, Trevor Deely kind of appears. Now, Trevor Deely appears in such a manner that he had no contact with the man in black at this point. It doesn't look to me from the body language. So he arrives, right? He appears at the second gate, and look, now the man like really approaches him. And look, this is an important detail from the body language, and I really want you to pay attention, dude, as Trevor Deely approaches the gate. From the body language, what I'm gathering here is that the man in black was the one who initiated the conversation. Because look. See? It's like, to me, it clearly seems like the man in black was the one who initiated the conversation with Trevor Deely. Nevertheless, they talk for maybe 10 seconds, I would say. Then Trevor kind of tells something to the man in black. Man in black, in a really weird and strange manner, turns around, and Trevor Deely proceeds to go inside of the premises of his workplace, and he closes the door behind him. And Trevor Deely enters the building at 3:36 a.m. This man is left standing by the second gate. Let's leave this timestamp. Yep.
Yeah, just I'm doing this both for my own benefit and then for the benefit of anyone else who, like you said, is looking at this VHS, you know, recording, and obviously the quality is
Yeah.
VHS level, not HG. Um, can you show me, if you just rewind for a couple seconds? Can you show me where the man in black is versus Trevor in that conversation? Like where? Yeah, if you rewind it before the man in black, where is he visible in the camera here, or is he just off camera?
He's clearly visible. This is like, as I move my mouse, this is the
Yeah.
man in black, and this is Trevor Deely. So Trevor Deely is the man on the left.
Oh, you know what? You know what it is? It's my chat window is no wonder. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Let me. This is a user error on my side. Oh yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And this is the
Goodness.
man in black. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's so odd to me. So then,
And look,
okay. So
and
then this
just
yeah.
just so that you're looking at this for the first time, then dude, look what happens next. They talk. He kind of gives him some sort of answer to his question. Look, he will now turn around in a very awkward manner, look, like almost like leaning down, like boo hoo. You know what I mean? Like, what is this? And look what happened next. I just want you to see the full intake, the full ordeal. As he enters, he kind of looks a little bit at him, but then kind of standing like boo-hoo. Like, I don't know what this kind of manner of standing is, but yeah. So this is the whole interaction.
Yeah. It looks real sketchy. Like he doesn't. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like he just asked what the time was, or who won the game, or anything like that. It looks.
Do you have any cigarettes? That type of a question.
Yeah, or yeah, yeah, and then like meanwhile kind of bumming around outside, but like you said, I mean, it was really cold that night. I think I was trying to look up historically
Hmm.
what the temperature was, and I think I saw it was 9 degrees Celsius. Does that sound right?
I have no idea, but it does
Uh,
make it's a logical, I would
oh,
say, for Ireland.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, nine. So that day, and obviously this is the nighttime, so it's probably presumably colder. That day in Ireland, Dublin, Ireland, it was 9.5 degrees Celsius. So it was heavy rain, windy day, cloudy day. Like you said, it's not like a good a good time of day to be out in any kind of weather like that. just hanging out. Yeah, it's pretty weird. So then this is a good way to, this kind of frames maybe what seems inconsequential or innocent for what happens inside his workplace next, right?
Yeah, exactly. But like, I want to quickly continue on. Look, this is very important for us. Look, dude. Very important for us and for everyone. I know that this is like heavily CCTV. We're reviewing CCTV, guys. I'm sorry, but this is the only way we could tackle this case. So for everyone listening on the podcast apps, I'm trying to make it as interactive as possible. Okay, so let's see what happens next. Now, as I've said, Trevor Deely just entered his workplace facilities, right? And look what happens next. This is 1 minute later. 1 minute later, we have three figures. Okay, so we have three figures now, super creepily. Like this is out of a horror film. Goddamn! Look at this crap, man. There's three people now, like zombies. Like this is some sort of a ghost horror flick, looking towards the facilities, which makes absolutely no sense because we had one individual, now all of a sudden we have three. I know that it's hard to see the third individual, so I quickly want to bring out the mouse, outline everyone. This is the man in black, the man that we have been talking for a short while now. This is an outline of another man that has just appeared at the gates. And in the distance here, if you can see, this is another very hard to tell outline of a third man. Now, police, law enforcement, they have cleared this man and they have cleared this man, and they have been proven to be the colleagues of Trevor, which still doesn't explain why they're so creepily staring at the premises. Why don't you just go inside if you're just gonna stare? Maybe it was a quick look, like maybe, oh, Trevor, are you gonna come out? And then maybe, they didn't hear from Trevor or something like that, and they just walked off. Maybe it was a situation like that. So now we have individual number one in the back, who's a colleague, individual number two, who's a colleague, and then individual number three, who's that creepy man in black, who's not a colleague, who has not been identified and is, I think the prime suspect in this case or something like that. Now, the odd part here is that as the police know who this man is, and who this man is, they know that these guys are colleagues of Trevor. Now, the interesting part for me is, couldn't they have given a better description of the creepy man standing by by the gates? Maybe they did, if you know what I mean. Because like these guys, these colleagues could literally tell who this creepy man on the right was because they actually were standing next to him. Does that make any sense, man?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, they should be noticing them because, I mean, in a lot of workplaces, an entrance like that is a security risk, especially a bank, right? I mean, this is one of the places you need to guard the most against
Mm.
malfeasance. So I guess I have two questions. So one question is, do they interact with this guy at all, or even think it's weird that he's standing there? Now, I say this because, especially right now in the U.S., we've got a lot of homeless people and beggars and bums and stuff running around that are, frankly, very often in business districts, kind of doing all kinds of things they shouldn't be doing. And I've been in workplaces in several of these places. So whether it was Santa Monica, which is notorious for it, or West Hollywood, which also has, its share of both tourists and weird homeless beggars and stuff. So like, I hate to say it, but weird guys like this kind of hanging around the sidewalk, getting in the way, and I think is also the case for probably places like New York as well, isn't that uncommon. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that something's going on, but I don't know that this is really the case in like Dublin, Ireland, especially 20 years ago. So you know what I mean? I guess I'm
Hmm.
trying to differentiate like how much in Dublin. Maybe we can hear from some of the folks that watch or listen to our show there. I would like to know how much are street people part of the scene Where like in Santa Monica, like I've showed up at my office that was in West Hollywood, and it was kind of weird. It was like on a busy street like this, and I had to go knock on the door. The night watchman had to come,
Hmm.
and it was like I needed my computer at 4 in the morning because I had insomnia, and like I didn't bring my computer home, and I knew I was going to have to like basically work from home the next day. This happened a couple times where I showed up there like that. So I just when I see these guys showing up at like what's basically the rear entrance of their work, and that's already weird, as people will as we'll get into, and like that they're not really reacting, and they're not even going
Yeah.
in yet, and then this weirdo guy said it's a bank, right? Like
It's a,
it's just like,
it's an IT department of the bank. Just a quick context. It
yeah,
was they didn't store money. It was
okay,
I
yeah,
think they only had the 10 workplaces there, and it was kind of more of the IT department. You know, the bank was scattered. The bank's infrastructure was scattered all around Dublin, from what I've gathered.
fair enough. And I mean, yes, that's a good point. So that maybe that answers some of the question, though. Even though there's no vault full of money there,
Yeah,
you've got like expensive IT equipment,
of
right?
course, of
I
course,
mean,
of
yeah, I
course.
mean that's I mean sometimes thieves actually prefer, like an IT department because it has computers and things that are easily, um, like
Hmm.
it's much easier to actually monetize something from there than as opposed to like what's in a bank, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's weird. It's weird. Like in this footage, do they react to this dude at all?
Yeah, so to answer that question, I don't think so. And I don't have the information. Maybe, but I didn't find this information, and it's nowhere. Like I've literally went through the articles through as many sources as I could, and it's really choppy. You know why? Because this shot of the three people standing here was released 15 years later on some sort of a documentary that was done regarding this case. So we only know about this whole ordeal 15 years later, because I think the initial CCTV that we will see another CCTV detail as well, another piece of footage. They have been released. I don't know, to the public, maybe like immediately after it happened, but like this particular shot with the three people, it has only been released 15 years later, which is kind of odd. But I guess I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. Now, I don't think they had any conversation with the guy, and let's remember that them standing at the gates is probably not that suspicious, because let's remember the company had a Christmas party, and these guys could have very well been from the Christmas party, and these guys could have very well been maybe some of the colleagues that were at Buck Whaley's with Trevor Deely, and maybe they decided to stick around for maybe an additional 5 or 10 minutes, and they were, kind of maybe were walking behind Trevor or something like that, and they saw Trevor go inside of the workplace, and maybe they were like, "Yo, Trev, are you gonna go out, or like what's up?" And maybe they didn't hear from Trevor, and then they walked off. And now let's talk about what Trevor did inside of the workplace, because it's very important. So I have a timestamp, so I want to quickly read what I have about Trevor as he was inside his workplace. So Trevor was right. So inside his workplace, Trevor made a cup of tea or coffee, it's not known, I think, and spoke to his colleague Carl Pender, who worked the night shift, and, you know, I guess just had a chat with him. He also checked his emails. Now, Trevor was described by his coworker Carl Pender, quote, uh, in good form, end quote, and another quote, a little bit tipsy, but not drunk, and then end quote. And then also Carl Pender said that he believed that Trevor was in control. So what's happening here is, Trevor goes inside the night shift. The original reason why he went here was to grab an umbrella, because he knew he would have to walk home like a half a kilometer or like a kilometer to his house, to his apartment that he was renting out. and it was raining and it was a taxi strike, so there were no taxis. So he knew that there were umbrellas at the office. He went to grab an umbrella, and so that was the premise. But he didn't just grab an umbrella, he stayed there for around 24 minutes. So he actually grabbed a cup of tea, he checked his emails apparently, he talked with the colleague, he told him that there was what the Christmas party was at the Hilton like, who was attending. So he just basically told Pender that he was having a good night, everything was fine. Carl then later told the media that he believes that Trevor was having a good day, he was in control, and then Trevor leaves. So quickly, I want to jump back to the CCTV because to make some sort of conclusions, we need to see the full picture here. Um, yeah, right. So the CCTV is gonna start playing once more. Let's see. Okay, so as you can see, so 24 minutes later, after having that discussion with the coworker, checking his emails, having a cup of tea, etc., etc., Trevor leaves. And the crazy part is we don't see the man in black anymore. The man in black is nowhere to be seen. We did see, by the way, really quickly, we did see initially someone else walking past the vicinity, like this man right here, or this individual, but they walked in an unrelated manner. I don't think they're related to this case in any way, shape, or form. Now, as you can see, what Trevor is doing here, he's just like getting his umbrella out, as it's raining, so nothing too strange. And we don't see the man in black. This CCTV, according to my understanding, this angle will never capture the man in black ever again. Um, as you can see, Trevor is standing a little bit by the street. He finishes, getting the umbrella out, and he walks towards his home. And this is very important. So okay, so this CCTV video is really good. So this is we are now at this place right here where he opens up the umbrella and he proceeds to walk towards his home, and he is actually captured on another CCTV camera. So really quickly, I want to jump back to the Google Earth just for a few seconds for everyone who's watching this on the YouTube channel, just to give them a better context. This is the area where we have been looking at the CCTV, the workplace of Trevor Deely. This is another area where Trevor Deely will be captured on another CCTV. We will be jumping to that in a few moments. Now, the proposed route that he took was he walked here. There's a good chance he crossed this river right here through this little bridge. Then he proceeded to walk in this direction, and he was captured on a CCTV. But actually, it was he. I want to quickly correct myself. I just realized that maybe he didn't cross this bridge, because as I was looking at the second CCTV, I'm almost 100% positive, almost 100% positive that Trevor Deely was approaching from this angle. So he was approaching from here, he was walking in this direction, so there's no way he could have crossed this little bridge. So people who did these articles, they're kind of not the smartest tools in the shed, in my opinion, because yeah, he definitely walked from here, so he couldn't have walked through this little bridge. Now, we will now jump to the CCTV where he's captured by this building's CCTV walking past this little sidewalk. And to give context, his apartment was in this neighborhood in Serpentine Avenue. So, just as some context, I want to quickly measure how much more kilometers. Yeah, because this is a European case. Let's keep it European. So as the crow flies, he had to go 1.4 kilometers to the to his home as the crow flies. So in terms of miles, that's like a mile. So okay, so he still had to go like a mile after this second CCTV footage, he still had a good mile in the rain to get to his house. And yeah, let's quickly jump back to the CCTV because I feel like it's very important for us to see the whole picture and then we can discuss it further. So as I've said, see, this is stupid. So this is really stupid. This is this right here, this proposed thing that he did cross the bridge is kind of stupid in my opinion because he was captured coming from over this bridge. Well, let's not focus on here for too much. Maybe the audience members that are not watching the visuals might get really confused. But now let's look at what happens here. Okay, so this is 4:14 a.m. Before we talk about anything else, I quickly want to ask you a question. So it took him 11 minutes to get to this place. So some people are speculating that it took him 11 minutes, that it should have taken him only 6 minutes to get to this area. So if I would backtrack, dude, I want to quickly ask you a question. Look, even the Google Earth is actually saying that it should have taken him 6 minutes to get to this second CCTV camera, but he arrives there 11 minutes later. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's weird. So is it, well, one theory could be just like I thought that maybe he had done something intentionally to make the man in black walk by him in that very short period of time. If he's sort of looking behind him and kind of like pretending to do something, um,
Hmm.
that, like they didn't have, barely anybody had a cell phone back then, but they didn't have like, smartphones for
Yeah.
sure. But just whatever, you know what I mean? Like pretending to do something, pretending to, I don't know, check the time, this and that. Because yeah, otherwise, I think the Google assumption for this kind of calculation is probably, I don't know what it is in kilometers. Let's say 3 miles an hour
Hmm.
is some kind of average walking time for most, you know, adults, let's say, that aren't encumbered. And all he has is an umbrella, right? He's not carrying a bunch of stuff.
I wanna add one
Yeah.
more thing, which is once again you had to like really grab all of these little time pieces to make it to make the timeline make more sense. So in between this walk, it is believed that he had called Glenn Cullen, the best friend from his hometown, around this time, and actually left him a voicemail. And in that voicemail, he told him because Glenn Cullen, on that particular night, he had left his phone charging, I think, in the kitchen or something like that, and he couldn't hear the call from Trevor, which is kind of really strange because usually he would leave it charged up by his bed or something like that, so he would hear the incoming phone call. But on this particular night, the coincidence was such that he couldn't, hear as Trevor was, calling him. So his call went straight to voicemail, and on that voicemail, Trevor told Glenn that everything is fine. He is on route home, all was good, and that he would call him the next day. So this is what that call was all about, which makes sense because let's remember at the Christmas party, he tried calling Glenn once, but then Glenn couldn't really understand what was happening because of the background noise at the Christmas party. So, like, there was a lot of this back and forth. Maybe Trevor really wanted to make sure that he tells Glenn that everything is like good and all of that. You know what I mean? So now but the strange part here is that police were kind of negligent here. They kind of uh, let Glenn delete this message because let's remember at that particular point in time, Glenn still didn't think much of it. Glenn thought that it's just a call and he deleted it, which was not weird, which wasn't a weird thing at that point to do when you don't really know that your friend is about to go missing for the next 21 years, you know what I mean? And also, since the voicemail is deleted, we do not have the exact time when the voicemail was left, and we do not have the exact words or the recording that was left by Trevor. So we only have to go off of, Glenn Cullen's memory. And Glenn Cullen says that it happened somewhere around 4 a.m., maybe 4:05, maybe 3 55 or something in this area. So it's highly speculated that Trevor did leave that voicemail to Glenn Cullen as he was walking towards that second CCTV camera that captured him. So maybe he was calling him, maybe he was standing around giving the call. Does that make any sense?
It does. I have two quick thoughts. So one is, why can't they get the voicemail back? The voicemail is on his mobile phone. Is that right?
I think, yeah, yeah. Well, this is 2000s phones, so
Yeah. So I'm trying to even remember like how voicemail worked on mobile phone. Because I mean, no joke. Like back then, a lot of voicemail, um, if it was like to your landline, might be to an actual
yeah.
like message machine,
Hmm.
which was either a tape or something digital that's like built into the phone machine.
Well,
But
if
then,
I just really
yeah,
quickly want to step in. Well, if it's gonna give you any additional context, Glenn Cullen recalls that he had the same exact mobile phone as Trevor, which was Nokia 1610, a common model at the time. So a Nokia 1610 is what they both had.
yeah, maybe. I mean, I almost want to call it the cloud. It wasn't really the cloud, but it was a server somewhere. So I'm like, well, why couldn't they really get that back if they wanted it? Because so few things are truly deleted.
Hmm.
Even when a file, we've talked about this obviously in the Chris Kremers case so many times, but deleted files are not really deleted in a lot of cases. It's weird to me. So that part's weird that they couldn't really get that back. And then here's the other thing. It feels weird now, but back then, like you didn't really have a lot of minutes in your cell phone plan. Maybe it's different in Europe. I know Europe has always been ahead of America, ahead of the U.S. in terms of like um, mobile penetration, let's say, and the kind of plans they had, and better quality mobile connections and technology, etc. But like in 2000, I feel like maybe I had like an hour's worth of minutes,
Hmm.
per month, right? For what I paid for.
Yeah.
So I get that he works for IT, and maybe it's different because of that. Like he has more minutes to spare or to use because it's like a business expense. But it's so weird to me that he keeps burning these minutes to call this guy. He's calling this guy like he's his girlfriend or boyfriend, which we don't think is what's going on.
No.
Right. I mean, I would just put it out there, right? I mean, we don't think, as far as we know, um, at least Trevor is heterosexual, presumably, from some of the other speculation around the Alaska trip. Why is he calling this dude so much? I mean, I do get like sometimes, and maybe this also plays into the Carl conversation at work, that when people get some drinks in them, especially around the holidays, it can make you more social
Yeah.
and make you more outgoing.
Yeah.
But does it strike you as weird, like just knowing
Nah,
that
not really.
that you didn't have unlimited mobile back then? That you're paying like I guess maybe they're really close friends, so maybe
Yeah.
that's why it's
Yeah.
just that's like his major relationship in his life is with his friend, and that's who he's gonna kind of feel important talking to. I don't know, it's weird to me.
I have some information. Trevor's closest friend throughout adolescence into adulthood was Glenn Cullen. They met when they were in the first year of secondary school in Nace. Uh, Glenn's quote is, "I never had an argument with him in any shape or form, not about girls, not about anything." End quote. Also, Glenn adds, "We did particularly everything together." So it seems like it's like I can totally understand like having someone from your childhood as a really close friend. Like that's a normal thing.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
yeah.
fair enough. By the way, though, I don't get the never having an argument part, though. I feel like I always had arguments with all my friends. But
Mm.
I'm also kind of an argument. You know me in the
Not
comments, right?
not for me. Not
Okay,
for me.
not for you.
Not for me. I kind of with like my close friends. I never had any arguments as well. So it's like I think it's like
Interesting.
yeah. It's I think it's like different for different people. But I kind of want to jump to the CCTV to discuss what happened next, right? So this is the CCTV, right? 11 minutes later, as Trevor walked out of the premises of his work. Now we can see this is clearly him because he's, walking with the umbrella, and this was kind of proved already by law enforcement that this was Trevor Deely. And now look what happens next. This is literally some sort of a horror movie worthy CCTV image. Like this doesn't even look real. This looks like it was made to look especially creepy. So let's see what happens next. I hope, yeah. So as he walked past, right? Look what happened. Look what's gonna happen next. So around 30 seconds later, we see this man walking in some sort of a zombie manner. Look at this guy. And this is proposed and is suspected by law enforcement back in Dublin to be the same man in black that was standing around the workplace, the same man in black that was standing for 30 minutes in the rain, then having a call with someone. And, after the call, Trevor kind of passed him. Then he had that little conversation with Trevor, and now he walks like this right past the CCTV, and you know, law enforcement kinda they said that they believe that this was the same man and that he is actually connected to Trevor's disappearance. So I think the timeline is actually done here. The last few points regarding the timeline would be that this was the last known sighting of Trevor Deely. We haven't had anything else. Now, Trevor Deely was living in an apartment in Dublin that he was renting out with two other women. So there were two other women. I believe one of the women was a friend of his family member. I don't know which, if it was a parent's friend or maybe his sister's friend. I'm not really sure regarding that detail. But those two girls that were living with him in his apartment were actually out of Dublin for a holiday. So he had the whole apartment to himself. So this morning, Friday comes. Trevor Deely doesn't show up for work. Now, as we've joked a little bit earlier on, the co-workers, they didn't think it was too out of the ordinary since it was a night out, so I guess it was appropriate to just miss work for the entire day, perhaps. Then on the weekend, Trevor's sister tried calling him, but this is a very important fact. She strongly believes that the calls went through because one of the big speculations regarding this case is that Trevor potentially drowned. But now, if the call went through, then it means that he most likely didn't drown, because if he drowned, that would mean that his phone would have had to be drowned as well. Well, obviously, if he wasn't mugged and his phone wasn't stolen, if it was an accidental drowning, then his phone must have drowned with him. And now experts believe very strongly that within seconds of a phone from the early 2000s, drowning would be non-active anymore, would like be completely destroyed. And that would mean that when his sister tried calling him twice over the weekend, the calls would not go through. So if he did drown somewhere, that would mean that it wasn't an accidental drowning, because his phone couldn't have been on him, because if it was, then the phone calls on the weekend wouldn't go through. So maybe someone mugged him, stole the phone, and then killed him and drowned his body. That's a possibility, but I kindly don't think it was a how should I put it? It wasn't an accidental drowning, or it wasn't a suicidal drowning. I think it was more of if it was drowning, it was implicated by a third devious party. To quickly finish off the timeline, law enforcement. Then, at on Monday, when Trevor Deely doesn't show up to work on the second day in a row, the work calls his parents. The parents start panicking. They contact law enforcement. A missing persons file is opened. Nothing happens for like no new leads, no new information that is publicly put out there happens for the next 17 years. But in August of 2017, law enforcement, following a tip-off, searched a 12-acre wooded area in West Dublin known as, quote, the stash area, end quote. By criminals, it's known as the stash area. It's believed an informer had suggested to law enforcement that Trevor may have been murdered by a Kremlin-based criminal in a chance encounter that night, so completely unrelated to Trevor, just a chance mugging and subsequent murder of Trevor. Search teams found a gun in the stash area, but they had found absolutely no evidence that Trevor Deely was ever there or was buried there. Really quickly jumping to the Google Earth map, this is the site of excavation. This is the stash area. This is where the gun was found, but Trevor. No indications that Trevor was ever in this place was found. So as you can see, it's like kind of a little bit way in the distance. And yeah, Trevor has been missing ever since. So I'm finally done with the timeline. I'm really glad that I managed to finish it finally. Dude, your thoughts on everything here? What's happening here, man? What's going on?
It's the one thing, just to rewind for a second. What do you think his sister means when she says the call went through?
She got
So what does that mean?
yeah. So what she means is that as she was calling, she heard those beeps, you know what I mean? And usually if the phone is already not active, you would get a message. At least here in Europe, you would get like a message in your phone like the number you have dialed is not in service, something like that. So she did not hear the number you have dialed is not in service, or like I'm sorry, not that that the phone that you're trying to reach like cannot go through, you know what I mean? I know specifically like those messages from back in the day, but if you hear the beeps, then it means that the phone is active somewhere. So the call, she was hearing beeping sounds, like the beeps, you know, when you usually like wait for 3 beeps and then you end the call. If you're like a sane person, if you're less sane, then you wait for like 7 beeps. But you know what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I think I understand. I think the sounds. I actually I know it. Sometimes the sounds are different for the telephone services that you guys have, and for us, for what a ring is.
Oh yeah.
It's just weird to me because I always think, like, let's suppose I turn my phone off right now. Today, modern stuff with my phone. If I turn off my phone, it's just going to go straight to voicemail, right? So you won't.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I guess it wasn't like that back then. Like if your phone was knocked off the air, that like it would actually act like you had a disconnected number or something. It's kind of odd
Maybe,
to me.
maybe,
Yeah,
perhaps. I
yeah,
wanna clarify that it's also not known and it's
yeah.
speculated because
It's anecdotal, right?
his sister
Yeah.
doesn't recall 100%, but she believes that the call went through. Like she heard the beeps, you know?
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to kind of clarify that because I mean it's funny how technology can change what that means. Yeah, the case is really I mean it's funny because I think going into this, before you walk through the case, I was a little more, I mean this is no surprise, right? I've been skeptical about a lot of our other cases too, like the Chris Kremers case initially. I was a lot more skeptical. I'll say that when I first saw that there was a body of water um
Two
on his,
bodies. you.
two bodies of water.
Really, really quickly, dude, I have
Yeah.
some information. Just to give a context, two bodies of water were heavily searched by a professional aqua team from the law enforcement who have done this exact search multiple times and with a high success every time they did it. Two bodies of water were searched. This is the first body of water that was searched. It's called the River Dodger. Uh, yeah, Dodder. I'm sorry, River Dodder. Pardon me for messing that up. River Dodder, and it kind of flows across the location where Trevor Deely was living at. Just really quickly to give some visual context, this is the river right here. So this is the first one that was searched, and then the Grand Canal was searched as well. So this would be the Grand Canal. Let's really quickly, just for visual context, this is the Grand Canal. It has always also been searched. Now there is a place where the Grand Canal kind of forms, which is this area right here, you know what I mean? And the quote is, if I'm not mistaken, they were definitely talking about this little area where the water kind of fills up. They couldn't drain it. They couldn't drain it because of the integrity, the integrity of the surrounding infrastructure would be compromised. So since it would have been compromised, it was a dangerous thing to drain this whole area, so they didn't. But from the search, the Aqua team kind of concluded that they don't believe that Trevor was somewhere drowned in the nearby waterways, at least.
Yeah, that was what I'd also heard in my research, that they kept on reiterating that, that from their search, they'd just done these exhaustive searches that seemed to almost prove that he couldn't have drowned in the immediate area. I do keep on wondering, though, is it absolutely, I mean, they seem to imply this, is it absolutely certain that it couldn't have, see how those other waterways connect to like even bigger and bigger waterways, um,
Yeah.
that he couldn't be, I mean, it looks like it eventually goes out to like the ocean, right? Um, I don't know. I mean,
Yep.
I'll
Yep.
say I don't have an explanation. I mean, I would have guessed initially that maybe he fell in the river or someone threw him in the river, something like that. But in absence of any real evidence of that, and then given some of the more insidious stuff going on, it's I don't have a good way of like assigning that a high probability at this point. Though I will say this is something I've noticed, is that we've had multiple cases like this with disappearances that just happen to be
Hmm.
near major waterways like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This isn't even like the second or third time.
Brian
This is like
Schaefer.
this. Brian Schaefer. What's her name in East St. Louis? Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I can't remember her name. Yeah,
Same.
or the guy we just covered in Texas. Was it
Oh yeah.
Texas?
Brandon Lawson, of course.
Brandon Lawson. Yeah, it just keeps going and going. Um, and it's strange to me. Strange to me, but not so strange. The only thing that is strange to me is that, you know, like it does seem like bodies do tend to reliably turn up when they get drowned
Mhm.
for the most part, because there's decomposition. The decomposition makes the body rise to the surface because of like the tissues bloat and things like that. So yeah, and I think even like, by the way, just before we keep moving on, wasn't President Clinton also visiting
Yes.
town, and didn't even his people help out a little bit with like,
I'm not sure, but I know
I
that he
thought I
was
heard something
visiting.
like that.
I
Yeah, I
didn't.
thought.
Maybe.
Okay, I thought when I was kind of going through the research, I thought I'd heard something like even the Secret Service had kind of pitched in a little bit, just because it was something weird that had happened. But I'm not certain about that. Okay, so there's that. I want to rewind for a second to the Alaska trip, because I feel like that's something that's been given a lot of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really quickly. So just to clarify, we're now going through the questions section. Just
Yeah,
no way
yeah.
Yeah, just go have at it, man. Have at it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's yeah. I mean, when I look at it, and I'm like, okay, so a couple things going on there. So some people looked at the Alaska trip and they took it on face value. Um, that like there's this girl who visited, and maybe he thought like they got on a little better um, than maybe she thought, um, and then just kind of on like a whim. I don't know. I mean, by the way, this isn't being mean. I mean, I'm sure all of us guys and girls have read more into something and maybe built up something in our minds more than it really was. But that the idea was he went on this trip. He arrives in Alaska. The girl had actually told him like, hey, don't come. I'm going to be busy. And he he kind of goes down there anyway. And like she's really not friendly when he gets there. And I guess while he saw some sights, he comes back and like, well, there's no relationship here. And whether he had built up that potential relationship to be more than what it was one of the areas where people speculated, well, maybe he came back. This feeds into some of the theories we'll talk about, but that maybe he was despondent over, like kind of having his hopes dashed, let's say. So that was one theory. Um, and that would maybe explain why he was willing to go on this big long flight, which, like you said, didn't cost him anything other than his time. But still, it's a lot of flying, right? I mean, that's a lot. I mean, it's such a random thing to do. I don't know. Maybe it's just a random age. So then the other thing about the Alaska trip was that people said, well, if he was involved in something like illegal, some kind of illegal enterprise, that there would be some kind of special connection in Alaska, which I'll have to say, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That like especially if you went through LAX. I mean, LAX has a lot more um, criminal connections going on than Alaska.
Alaska for like criminal connections.
It's weird was I did some research, and it's interesting that they do have a pretty high relative crime rate. So like does that make sense? So like, well, it doesn't have Alaska doesn't have a big population. It's the biggest state, I think, land wise, but the population is quite small. But the amount that actually has the third highest per capita homicide rate in the United States. So for the number of people, it has a high number of murders and like assaults and property crimes. There are some organized crime connections around. It's mostly around stuff that like LA does better. If it makes sense, there's way more criminal stuff. So to me, I mean, it was like, well, why wouldn't you just stay in LAX? Or sorry, in LA, and do your dealings there. It doesn't make any sense IT wise or otherwise to me to go to Alaska for it to be part of some kind of plot, either
But
as part of
quickly, maybe he did do, like, if that's the case, then maybe he did do something in LA, and Alaska is almost
yeah
is a red herring. You know what I mean? Almost.
yeah that's true. That's and then maybe the girl there
Yes.
is part of that. Yeah, that could be true. I will say, as an aside, apparently it's not as bad as it used to be, but there's like a male to female imbalance in terms of like Alaska doesn't have enough women.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because it's like a pretty rugged place, and it's probably just if you're, I mean, who wants to? Not a lot of people want to live there to begin with, even though because it's got like weird day lengths and things like that. It's got harsh weather, polar bears, etc. So I was kind of laughing that like, yeah, she probably has a lot of guys to pick from anyway back home. So like him, I don't know, just being kind of a normal looking guy. I don't know. I don't know if he really had good odds unless she wanted to move to Ireland or something someday. So I don't know. Just word to the wise: don't go chasing girls from Alaska, from other parts of the world, unless you know for a fact they want to move to where you are, because they have like plenty of choices back home. Okay. After that kind of off-color remark.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not totally sold on the Alaska trip. I think it is interesting though. It is weird because it is like I think if Brian Schaefer had suddenly ran off to like Jamaica or someplace like that right before he disappeared, we would for sure have read a lot into that, right? Or
Of course, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it is like definitely worth considering. Um, we've already talked a little bit about the coworker thing being very weird, or even like, so here's what came up in some of the research for the show was
Hmm.
people were like, well, were the coworkers actually waiting for him? Like, did he either come in the middle of something that just hypothetically, right? Allegedly, not accusing the coworkers of malfeasance,
Yeah.
but saying if the coworkers had been part of some kind of
Okay,
illegal plan.
really
Yeah.
quickly, which ones are you talking about? Carl Pender, the guy who was doing the night shift, or are you talking about the two guys
The
waiting beside him?
Yeah, more like the two
Beside
guys
him.
waiting outside. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Carl's supposed to be there, and whatever Carl was going to be doing anyway. But the two people that show up after like the party,
Mm.
also at like 4 in the morning. I will say that back then it was a little harder to check your work email from home. Um, it was not nearly so common. Like no joke, probably until almost the late 2000s. Maybe it wasn't until 2006 or 2007 that I even did check my work email from home
Yeah.
because it was harder. It was a pain in the ass. Now he's an IT guy, so maybe that he's supposed to know how to do that a little easier than the average person. But I don't know. It's a little weird. So same thing for the coworkers. Like, what are they doing there? Why are they all? There was something going on there. Um,
I
Even then, I'll just yeah.
just really to chime in. What I've gathered from that is that the most likely were with him at the nightclub called Buck Whaley's, and he probably just followed behind him and then stood around and maybe said, "Yo, Trev, are you going out?" And as they didn't get a response, they kind of probably moved away because law enforcement cleared them. That's just a little context. Now I know what I know what you mean. It's kind of suspicious, but just to give that context, you know.
Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. And like you said, they were cleared. Um, Conversation with Carl. Everyone's kind of noted that one was kind of weird, where he like asked Carl to have some tea with him, and Carl's like, "Well, I need like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm getting through something," and then he hangs out. It wasn't like his normal thing, and one can't help but wonder, given the weird situation with the man in black outside, if it's almost like he was waiting that guy out. You know what I mean? Like he was like, given this weird thing going on outside, maybe I'm just gonna hang out here for a bit and see if that dude's still around. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that actually does make sense. That he was waiting for him, like for real.
Yeah, yeah. Then maybe this was one of a couple things where he was trying to
Mm.
short circuit someone else's behavior, which means maybe he also noticed something was up. I'll say, even in terms of like, it does make you wonder how much his job had to do with this because, um, as you mentioned, it looked like the man in black was on the phone with somebody looking out for him. Well, that means that person on the phone with him probably knows that where Trevor's going. You know what I mean?
Maybe was tracking him.
Yeah, yeah, because but knows that he's going to be at least going that direction or on that street. You know what I mean? Which and it's weird. He happens to be waiting in front of the exact place that Trevor's going to be, because like people say, well, what if it was a random crime or this or that? But like, boy, that's a lucky like setup. You know what I mean? If something happened in the club and then they're like, oh, let's mug this guy or let's take care of this guy. Wow, how would you even know where he worked? So that implies some other,
Yeah.
I don't know, deeper conspiracy. Um, I feel like that's it from my side for the question.
All right, so my questions, we kind of really went over them through the timeline. So once again, I had the thing with, I had the question with, I found it strange how the phone apparently did, his sister's calls went through. That kind of led me to believe that his phone wasn't submerged in water, but we already talked about it. The Alaska trip, you had way more insights than I had in my research, so we already talked about Alaska. We already talked about how we found it strange, at least on my end, that it took him 11 minutes to walk a 6-minute distance between the two CCTV footages, but then again, he called his best friend Glenn Cullen at that time, so maybe it's not that strange. The only thing I have is that on the same day, Trevor Deely's apartment had a power outage. And now I don't know whether it was an outage in the whole apartment, in the whole complex, or just his apartment. And there's very little information on it, but apparently there was a power outage at his apartment. So I was kind of wondering, is there a chance that the power outage is in any way, shape, or form connected to Trevor Deely's disappearance? I'm kind of right now brainstorming in my head what would even be the purpose. Let's say if the man in black is out to get Trevor Deely and this is some big conspiracy, what would this conspiratorial organization of people who are out to get Trevor Deely, what would they gain exactly by cutting out the power of his apartment? Like, well, yeah.
So the power outage was before his disappearance, though, right? So before the party, I
I
guess.
think so, yeah.
Okay, so the only thing I can think of is I never heard mention of. Do you know what I guess I'm aging myself a little bit. Do you know what a BlackBerry is?
Of course, of course. Are you kidding me? It's like the BlackBerry stock is now, it's one of the meme stocks. It's
Yeah,
popular.
yeah. I mean, I was working on online since 1998, and I remember it's interesting. I never heard mention of a BlackBerry for him because you think he would be the kind of worker because he's IT support who would have a BlackBerry. And I say this because that means you have like internet access wherever you go to your email account. But it doesn't. I'm not hearing that. I mean, maybe he had it on his mobile. I don't know that he did. So my thought is, well, if he was able to check his email from home, but then oh no, like this is why I need to stop by work tonight after the party is because when I go home, I'm not going to be able to check my messages for like whether the support tickets or anything opened up. Maybe that forces him to be someplace because like that's part of his job, right? Maybe just to
Mm,
to 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 check things and be in regular internet connection. And maybe it's like, okay, well, if you can't check it from home,
yeah.
now you do have to come into work after the party.
Mm. It makes sense, but like, I wouldn't put too much weight behind it because it seems like Trevor Deely wasn't the type of a guy at 22 years of age who would be involved in such things that a very highly organized hitman squad would be out to get him. Now the LAX trip, I don't know if he maybe was transporting like some packages back and forth, maybe that entails something, but currently, like, there's no, like, it's all speculation. There's no evidence leading towards him maybe transporting some goods back and forth from America. So it's all speculative, so we can't really speculate on that end. But if that was the case, then maybe. But even then, in Dublin, the criminals from Kremlin, I would think they're more old-fashioned type of guys who would just like run up on you and do away with you like that. I don't think like Dublin, like the proposed Kremlin gang that was involved, I don't think they would be go that far as to cut off the power. They would like really just whack you in the head and do their thing, you know. So I think that's how they would be operating, especially in the 2000s, perhaps. Pretty much, dude. I think. How about we jump to the theories?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. So the theories. I think you handled the theories in the script, so I think you should also talk about like the theories as well, because literally what you have added in the theories, these are all kind of the same in my head, so I didn't want to add anything else. So yeah, dude, like why don't you like have added? I might have some inputs as well, because I have no idea, to be honest, where I'm even leaning here.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's just lead off with the first one was suicide. The idea that he was despondent about something, and it would have had to be something recent because we have no indications of him being massively unhappy. If anything, it seemed like he was a pretty happy guy up until maybe the trip to Alaska, where he still seemed happy when he got back from the trip, right? He was like talking about the great sights he'd seen, like the ice capped mountains of Alaska, but that maybe there was some kind of heartache or heartbreak that happened in that trip, and because of that, maybe he did something drastic. What do you think of that?
I think it's probably the least likely out of all of the theories, because he did talk to Carl Pender right before he left. And Carl Pender is kind of the last person to really have this like a conversation with Trevor, and he said that he was in good form, happy, was talking about like the fun night he was having. Now, obviously, like depressed people, they sometimes have a knack of like subduing their true emotions, but I don't know. I don't know. I think I didn't get the feel that this was the case. So I think out of all of the theories, I think this is probably the least likely, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it does make you wonder if there was anything in those calls to his friend Glenn. That's the only kind of thing I would say where maybe there was some kind of um,
Mm.
could be some kind of outreach for help, and then the call where, oh, everything's all right. That's the only thing where I'm like, oh, maybe. I think to your point, yeah, like anyone I've ever known, and I've known a few people now who have committed suicide, they usually, whether I saw it or someone else saw it, um, were showing some kind of signs of like major behavioral disturbances and depression and things like that. And I don't, unless everyone's kind of sitting on it, um, I don't see any signs of that.
Mm.
So, nobody else seems to think, who was close to him, that he committed suicide.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we get well, the next from suicide comes homicide, and we have a couple different theories around that. Um, and I think, well, so like, the one, of course, that we've been talking about the whole time is this man in black, and whether this man in black was either somebody who personally had it out for him, whether it was a random crime, whether the man in black was part of some conspiracy, and then why is there a conspiracy to kill or apprehend or otherwise abduct? It's just really weird, right? So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about? I think you already said that you don't really put a lot of stake in some kind of conspiracy around, let's say, him being part of or discovering a criminal plot. Do you want to elaborate on
Oh,
that, or?
yeah, yeah, of course. So I think there's also some. There was a line of thinking that maybe Trevor Deely found some implicating information from his work, related to his work, because he was working at a bank. Maybe banks have Sometimes like shady people try to launder money or like have illegal money. Maybe he uncovered some sort of a plot and he had to go, or maybe he was transporting potential narcotics from America or to America, and like the Alaskan trip was just like a red herring for him. Maybe if that's the case, then yeah, but like all speculation. We have no reason to believe that that was the case. It's We can speculate, but since there is literally not a single like a little detail that connects him to one of these conspiracy things, I kind of don't think it's a conspiracy. Like, also, once again, I think it's very unlikely, in my opinion, that there was a conspiracy to kill Trevor. But an accidental mugging gone wrong, like a completely unrelated mugging and then killing of Trevor Deely, like he got mugged somewhere in the area by some criminals. I think I would strongly lead towards that. Out of all the theories, I am the I'm leaning the strongest towards that he ran into some criminals and the criminals killed him, whether accidentally killed him or not accidentally killed him. I would be more like the homicide. I'm gonna go with the homicide theory on this case, but not in a conspiratorial manner, more in a accidental random mugging, random run-in to criminals, whether they were from Kremlin or some other area from Dublin. They just killed him.
So then, do they disappear his body like he's Jimmy Hoffa? That's the only part
Yeah.
that kind of bugs me. Is, I mean, just mentioning Jimmy Hoffa, they had to disappear Jimmy Hoffa because um, he was such an important person. So that's what I want to point out. Jimmy Hoffa is a really famous and important person who had known associations with organized crime figures and known like problems, let's say, like political, intergroup issues with these figures. So if something happened to Jimmy Hoffa, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies were looking for an excuse to jump down those people's throats. Now, for someone like Trevor, let me just play devil's advocate. Why not just leave his dead body somewhere? Why go to the time and effort and apparently successful effort to hide his body?
Because isn't that what you do after you accidentally kill someone? You kind of panic and you want to hide the body. And if you're a known criminal and maybe it's not your first time doing such a thing, maybe you already have the necessary skill set to make it happen. And as we've known from the later developments of like stash areas where guns were found, it seems that Dublin had some hidden places, where you could stash a body.
That makes sense. I just keep on thinking, let's say, so like we think it happened, probably some aspect, some part of the crime happened in the street between like his workplace and where he lives. But that means somebody has to actually not only do the crime somewhere almost within public view, but then they need to actually like take his body, somehow not leave any blood evidence or anything else, and then put it in a car, I guess, and then drive. Then you're like exposing yourself also to risk, right? Because if you get stopped by the police and you've got like a dead body or not dead body, and you're like an abducted person in your car,
But
you know
perhaps,
what I mean?
but
Yeah.
perhaps it was an accident. Maybe the muggers uh, tried to take something away from him, but Trevor was like, "I'm not gonna give you anything," and they kind of shanked him accidentally and saw him, bleeding out. Yeah, where's the DNA?
Yeah, where's
Um,
the blood? Where's
but
and then how do you gotta get him in a car, right? Like how do you transport his? I mean, unless you own,
yeah,
I guess, a building nearby and have some place you can kind of like take him inside and dismember him. Let's say in the bathtub or something. That's
or
what
just
you know.
or
What I mean,
just
yeah,
or just drive him into the countryside.
right into the countryside, and then you gotta, I guess, presumably bury him. To me, for some reason, it sounds like a lot of work. I keep on thinking like versus but so like the more time you spend with that body, the more you're sort of like leaving evidence and increasing the chance of being caught with a dead body versus like if you just kill them and you leave them there.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, on one hand, people are now looking for us killers and now they know there's been a crime, but then you get to put distance between yourself and the body, at least until like DNA evidence gets much better, which I don't know if there is any. Yeah, I'm playing. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm playing devil's advocate a
Yeah,
little
of
bit
course, of course, of
because
course. Yeah.
because I could see someone else asking the same
Mm-hmm.
questions.
Of course.
It is fascinating, and then like there's that informant who like said it essentially insinuated that this is what happened, right?
Yeah.
That he'd maybe had some kind of run in, some kind of like some kind of altercation or something with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what like things kind of snowballed and then became something much worse than what they were intended. It's interesting. I can't rule it out. I mean, because he went to the nightclub, right?
Yeah.
If it had just been on the street, it is weird. There's a lot of weirdness about that. Okay, so then there's that theory. I think we've covered that. Finally, I think this is probably the other theory is that there was some kind of accident. So, like whether we're talking about Michael Negrete or Brian Schaefer or several other people that we've covered.
Maura Murray comes to mind.
Yeah, more Murray, Brandon Lawson, like that. There was some kind of like accident. Um, that somebody that he, let's say, fell in the river, that he maybe even he was hit by. So this is sort of like a crime, but it's not like the kind of crime you think of where like maybe a drunk driver hits some like. So this has happened before for sure. There's like an infamous case where this lady hit a guy with her car, and the guy was like impaled through her windshield, and then she took the guy. This is here in America. She drove the guy to her garage and like just left him in the garage dying for like days. And he like begged her to take him to the hospital, and she didn't. And this guy died like in her garage. And so that's like the drunk drive. I mean, that's obviously a lot closer to murder. But you can imagine someone like hit him. Oh my God, I just hit this poor kid. And then what do I do? What do I do? And you put him in your car, and then the guy dies, and you're like, well, what am I going to do now? And then it becomes like closer to your scenario, where they drive him out in the countryside somewhere, throw his body someplace where it just never gets found,
Yeah.
and then it rots. Ireland is a pretty wet and humid place. Um, Body deteriorates, never found again. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Kind of. I don't know. I don't think it's that, for say, difficult. If the circumstances is such that the body is already in the trunk, and there's no evidence, DNA evidence on the scene where you either accidentally mugged him or accidentally hit him or killed him on purpose, or even took him as a hostage and threw him in the trunk. I think if the situation is such, looking at the map, I think just driving I don't know, 50, 60 miles out into the countryside. It looks like there's plenty of areas to make sure a body is never going to be found ever again. As sadly as it sounds, I would kind of be leaning towards this line of thinking the most.
Man, I don't know what I think at this point about this one. It's funny because usually I'm so quick to assign percentages. Um, I would say let me try. So I'm going to give it a 50% chance it was an accident. He drowned somehow for all the scuba divers and stuff that they tried. that maybe his body, because it was raining, washed out maybe to sea, just never to be seen again. For whatever, just some perfect storm of things, him getting through the drains and everything, canals, etc., out to sea, never seen again. Maybe that's why it took him 11 minutes to go, what should have taken him 6 minutes. That he was more encumbered
Mm.
than Carl and other people perceived. I'll give it a 40% chance that it was some kind of homicide. I also, like you said, the homicide thing, I'm really on the fence, because I almost want to lean towards some kind of crazy conspiracy, given the weird actions we saw of people out there. It would be really interesting to know if they ever investigated the amount of, like, kind of street people traffic outside of that business. Like if it turns out there's some weird guy in black there every other day, you know, bumming cigarettes and stuff, then that I'm going to give a lot less credence to the conspiracy. But yeah, let's just say one where either a conspiracy or some kind of random crime, and then I'll give like a 10% chance to suicide at this point. And I'm kind of, given all those calls to Glenn, maybe I'm gonna change my mind a little bit, um, and say 20% suicide, 30% homicide. So I think
Okay.
that's where I'm sitting right now. Yeah,
20% suicide, 30% homicide, 50% accident, right? Um,
yeah,
that's I would increase the homicide to maybe I have no idea, maybe like 70, and then I
okay,
would add maybe 20% to the accident. No, I would add like actually I think I think 70% homicide, 30% accident. I will kind of leave out well, nah, I won't. I'm actually gonna say this. I'm gonna say 70% homicide, 25% accident, and 5% suicide. Yeah, I don't want to completely leave out the suicide, because you never know. People know how to hide their emotions. So yeah, dude, I think we wrapped it up. Anything you want to mention before we sign out?
no, just like I said, we're super happy for all the wonderful comments every week. I will say our podcast has been showing exceptional growth the past couple months. So thank you to all of you who are downloading our show via like Apple and Spotify and all these other great apps. If you're doing so, please also check out the YouTube. I think that they both complement each other. You know, the podcast is good for when you're on the road, and the YouTube is good for when you're at home or in front of a digital device. So, please try to do both if you really like the show.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us this week. We will be back next week talking about some cool, interesting cases once more. Have a good rest of the weekend. Hope everyone is doing well. We'll see you next week. And for now, just stay safe and peace out.